treat this video as a complement to your other training and safety materials and not as a replacement. Be sure to review all safety materials before going to work. Since the first successful cable barrier installation on the Lake Hefner Parkway in 2001, the Oklahoma Department of Transportation has recorded that cable barrier systems have decreased the crossover fatality rate by more than 90%. Although cable barriers do not completely eliminate the potential for crossover accidents, they have proven to be reliable in preventing most of these incidents. While there are several types of cable barrier systems, the general function is to absorb and deflect energy from an impact, preventing a vehicle from crossing the median and into oncoming traffic. Many state departments of transportation have adopted these systems, and they have proven to be successful nationwide. With cable barrier systems covering almost 700 miles across the state of Oklahoma, it is critical for wrecker companies and first responders to be aware of the proper way to extricate a vehicle from the barrier. It is important to note that there are two cable barrier systems used most often in Oklahoma: Trinity, as seen here, and Gibraltar. Though it is likely you will encounter one of these two barrier systems, other types of barriers such as Bryphon may be encountered as well. Removing a vehicle properly reduces exposure time for all parties at the scene and allows the cable to be repaired and returned to service in a timely manner. When arriving at the location of a cable barrier incident, it is important to first assess and establish traffic management, then assess the condition of the vehicle's occupants. After you have assessed the scene and determined that there is no threat of loss of life, then the proper steps must be followed to allow for the safe removal of the vehicle while keeping first responder and maintenance crew exposure time to a minimum and preventing further damage to the cable barrier system. Remember, it is important to pay attention if you are working from the active traffic side of your emergency vehicle. In order to remove a vehicle, you must first determine how entangled the vehicle is in the cable. It may be as simple as lifting the cable off of the vehicle. If this is not possible, the next step would be to release tension on the cables. To do so, support posts on either side of the vehicle can be removed. In certain cases, it may be necessary to remove additional posts. If it is determined that the only option to remove the vehicle is to reduce tension on the cable itself, this can be done by loosening the turnbuckle or turnbuckles closest to the vehicle. When doing so, ensure that the turnbuckle is only loosened to let out enough tension to move the cable. Do not loosen it to the point that it disconnects, as this may damage the threaded ends of the cable. It is also possible to cut the turnbuckle, but only do so if loosening it did not work. If this is the case, only cut the turnbuckle in the very center to avoid damaging the cable ends. The turnbuckle you encounter may vary depending on the barrier system. If the vehicle has contacted the cable in a way that has caused the cable to be pulled out of alignment, it is recommended that the vehicle is moved back into the original alignment before attempting to release tension. When doing so, ensure that all parties on the scene are aware that this is happening and to take precautions, as the cable may break free and whip back towards the posts. In certain but rare instances, and as a last resort, it may be necessary to promptly cut the cable. However, this should only be done when the situation is life or death, meaning that if the cable isn't cut immediately, someone is potentially going to lose their life. If the cable is to be cut, ensure that it is between two undamaged posts away from the scene, and be aware that the cable may fray as it is cut. To reduce the amount of cable damage during cutting, duct tape should be wrapped around the cable on each side near where the cable will be cut. Again, this is a last resort option under critical circumstances. Limiting exposure time at the scene is critical, and while it may seem like cutting the cable is the best option to limit exposure time for first responders and maintenance crews, doing so actually increases this time exponentially due to the need to repair or replace the cable at a later date. The effectiveness of the system is also greatly reduced if the cable is cut and may leave the traveling public at risk until the cable can be repaired. Additionally, cutting the cable may lead to the potential for secondary accidents, not only during the initial response, but also during the time it takes to repair the cable. If the vehicle is entangled in the cable but located far enough off the roadway so as not to impede traffic, It is best to leave the vehicle until peak traffic is over, and a qualified maintenance crew or authorized contractor can assess the situation and determine the best course of action. To recap, lifting the cable off of the vehicle will cause the least amount of damage to the barrier system. If that is not possible, the next steps would be post-removal and loosening or cutting the turnbuckle. The final step of cutting the cable should only be attempted when the situation is dire and there is a potential for loss of life. Safety is of the utmost importance, and caution should be taken during any removal technique. If you are not comfortable or are inexperienced with cable barrier incidents, it's best to contact authorized personnel immediately for assistance. ODOT and OTA can provide guidance and on-site assistance at the scene. Personnel are trained to safely release tension in the cables and are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, please do not hesitate to contact your local ODOT or OTA interstate or county maintenance yard.